Well, hello all. This last week, I got an interesting message that somebody contacted me on from one of my videos we had watched. He said he was a new DM and he wanted to know why I think you should run your own content other than what I've said in my videos. Now, I think he's new. I don't think he's seen most of my videos. So my guess is he'd only seen the one thing and he didn't really understand that I have been talking about this for a long time. And that's fine. But I went ahead and sent him a response because, he seemed really interested and was excited to be involved in role-playing. And I wanted to obviously see that flourish. So I said, basically, I'll paraphrase that, when you run your own campaign, you and your players make a unique experience, adventure, and history in that world that only you and they will have, and that they basically help you grow your campaign and make your adventures better all the way up to the finish. And at that point, all the fabulous things that you've done, adventures that you've run, are so unique to you, and the finale of the game is so completely unique to you that only you will have it to share amongst all these friends, and they will spread the stories far and wide, and for decades later, you will talk about them, and others will just wish that they could have been involved. Now, that's kind of true, but see, that's not the whole point. And the whole point is tougher to explain in a few words. But basically, I will make some attempt to do so. When role-playing came out in the mid-70s, it was something that nobody kind of even seen before or thought about or knew anything about. It was just totally unique. Not within the game mechanics of man-to-man combat. There were already medieval man-to-man combat games, and in Chainmail, which TSR did and produced, they had a little thing where they threw things from Lord of the Rings in the back. I've mentioned this. People were excited about that. Hey, we want more of that fantasy stuff. Makes sense. They want to make money. They put out some pamphlets, and someone said, hey, we'd like to see a man-to-man combat situation too. Hey, that's kind of cool. Let's do that. And I mentioned how they had a set of rules. They popped it together, and voila, D&D 0 is produced. Now, they tell you this is a framework and sort of a basic thing, and everything is up to the DM. You utilize this and use it to grow your campaigns and make your adventures and everything else, with the assumption that everybody out there who was going to DM was going to create something totally unique at various levels. They expected some would be kind of weak, some would be fantastic, and that's kind of how it went. Now, that went on for many years, and where we are now, to me, feels like the late 70s, just as D&D first edition is coming into play. Because everyone had now been playing for about 4 years of playing whatever version of D&D 0 they were modifying for their group. Because there was no real modules in D&D 0. Everybody was doing their own thing. Some people popped out some stuff. Few things came out in the time, but there really wasn't much. So they realized, well, you know what? We're not making a lot of money on this. It's surely not what we should be. That might sound familiar to you guys who are watching the little conflict with the open license on 5th edition. Things don't really change. They just sort of repeat in time. Now, basically what happened is all these other people started jumping into the bandwagon and coming up with their own rule systems, and with their own rule systems and their background and their color and things like that I have mentioned over the years in videos. And it was all good. We were in a very unique time. And at this point, by the way, I had already gotten out of D&D and was playing Chivalry and the Sorcery and RuneQuest and other game systems that were evolving out. And there were many things coming out at this time. And the world was changing. It was so dynamic. Now, D&D had to do something about that. They realized that, we can't have it just open like we said. It just can't be willy-nilly and whatever you want, because people aren't going to buy it. Now, I made my own game system and I put it out there for things to see, but most people will still always play D&D. Why is that? Because it is the one that everybody knows, and it is the one that is easiest to find a set of effective rules for, and they'll use it. They did back then. So first edition was awesome because where they had virtually no real rules, sort of an open field in D&D 0, D&D First edition was chart after chart after chart after chart and telling you how to micromanage and do all the things within the game. And we will give you modules and things like that and all these things that can sell. Believe me, I have no problem with them selling stuff. That's how you put your kids through school and are able to pay your mortgage. Fabulous. And they were providing a really good product. And lots of people were playing because lots of people could come into the game and play it. And as I've told you, realistically, most people who role played didn't own a pencil. You had the DM who sort of had as much as he wanted and as much as he needed, maybe miniatures, maybe other things, and mats, who knows what he made at the time. Then there was maybe one or two other players who had the player's handbook and maybe something else, because if you wanted to buy a monster manual and read about the monsters, well, you could. Maybe you shouldn't, but that's up to you on how you play your game. If you've got the economy, you can. Now, that went on always throughout all of Dungeons and Dragons. The reason it's the most popular is there are people who follow it and love it. It has the most followers, and people can come into the game and essentially spend nothing. They can come up, they can show up with a pencil and roll, and maybe hopefully some dice, and roll up a character, and people will let them in their game and they can start playing, and the excitement level can go. And some will spend money and become game masters and everything else, and some will just sort of tag along for the fun, and it will mean nothing, and then it'll maybe go away or not. So you have the hardcores, and then you have the hanger-oners. And the hanger-oners are what make the game. They're the ones who make the numbers huge so that people feel good about the fact that there's always a game to be played. And there is. There might be better game systems out there. There might be better histories. There might be better everything. I always tell people that if you're new to role-playing, or if you get people involved in role-playing, run Lord of the Rings. Not only do you have the books, you've got the movies. I mean, most people out there, even if they've never, seen or understood or played role-playing, they more likely see Lord of the Rings. Thusly, they know the story. And you can immerse them in color because they know what elves look like, and they know what dwarves look, and they know what orcs look like. They know what the Balrog looks like. They know what a dragon looks like. They can show up, and it can all be in their mind. Now, if you provide miniatures and you do whatever, that's up to you. But the thing that has become lost, and why I say you should run your own adventures, is most role-playing from the time the rules became the main factor instead of the story was people played the system. Now, modules are out there and people talked up, did you play this module? Did you play that module? Have you seen this module? I tell people, look, I never really played modules. I never run modules ever. Occasionally I did some of the living games, like in Living 3.5, in Living Greyhawk. I ran. It was nice. It was fine. And I found there were people who were writing these modules were just putting great story content in there, which almost no one read, or no one, if you did tell it to them, even understood what you were saying. So everything was lost. And since you went from one adventure to the next adventure to the next adventure, and no matter what you did in the first adventure, it wasn't having any effect in the second, or third, or fourth, or fifth, or 25th adventure you played. Modules do not know what you've previously done in your campaign. So no matter how heroic, no matter how creative, no matter how magical you do things in a one-module game, the next time you play it, it's as if the module doesn't care. All the things you did make no difference in where that goes. Now, if you have multi-stage modules, you're supposed to do 1 and then 2, then 3, it really bothered me because it was like, well, wait a minute. I did so much in game 1. Module 2 can't be just the static same module I played and everyone else plays, even if they failed or even if they stumbled through or lucked out or whatever. It would be different, but it's not. It's the same. Now, what ends up happening then is people play it a lot like they play computer games. I've heard that from people. They say, all role-playing now is like computer games. And I said, well, it kind of is. Because in computer games, if you play the first adventure and you get wiped out, well, guess what? You restart the game and you go back and do it again. And you play it until you win. You go to the next adventure and the next adventure and the next adventure, and your characters get better and they get bigger and they get cooler stuff, and you buy this and you go to the auction house and you do all the things you did in World of Warcraft, which I loved and spent a ton of time playing. But the thing that obviously left the I don't really care And the kind of like, I'm wasting my time attitude with me was, no matter what I did, no matter how heroic, no matter how tremendous, no matter how wonderful it was, nothing was going to change in the next adventure. Nothing. You could play it as many times as you want. You know how it's going to play. So what happens then in these things is people say, well, I'm going to then min-max my characters, or I'm going to get a bot and go on and have the bot collect stuff for me so I can be the ultimate me I can possibly be. Is that role-playing? Is that exciting adventuring? Does that lead to the point where people say, characters should never die? I mean, no matter what I do, I don't want my character to die. I love my character and I want him to flourish. Well, that's a computer game. That's what it is. I didn't like the outcome. I'll repeat it. Wash, repent, do again. Role-playing should be like a book, like a story. Matt Coville's first book, and he gave it to me, and he wanted me to read it, and I read it, and I was like, he goes, so what did you think? And I said, you fooled me. He had an ending I did not expect. I expected a pat ending, and he gave me something that was just like a real live role-playing game. I went, oh, that's awesome. It's surely not what I expected. And now I want to know what this character does in the future, because it isn't like a role-playing game. It should be like a book. When you read a book, you get it, and then maybe they do another book, on it, Dune, or any of the books of fantasy. What happened in the first book carries over into the second book and the third book. And if a character dies in the first story, Boromir gets filled with arrows from an orc and croaks, he's not going to be in book 2. He doesn't get, he doesn't get resurrected and come back and play again. Or he doesn't say, hey, I'm going to reboot book 1 and play it again. It's not that way. Role-playing is the moments, the power, the things that happen in your game. And the fact that, I've talked about these where I've had characters dramatically die, like a Boromir type situation. Sometimes I think even more dramatic. But my dying made that game better. The story became more important because I think, as Matt has said to people and I've said to people, if your character dies, you're going to make a new character. And this new character, you might end up liking even more than the first one, because now not only do you have your new character, maybe you got a bit of a grudge towards some certain bad guy or whatever, or a story aspect. And you don't see that in role-playing. Now, I love systems. I mean, I've played so many systems that I half the time can't keep them separate. I play in Dungeons & Dragons on my Monday night game, and I tell people, I'm never sure whether I'm quoting 2nd edition or 5th edition rules. I don't know. I mean, I've got so many of them running around, and my brain is so muddled because of all the stuff in there that it bounces around, and hopefully the right rules come out. But often, people go, yeah, that was 3rd edition. It's like, it doesn't work that way in 5th edition. It's like, oh, sorry. Didn't know. Forgot. Mixed it up. Well, what does 5th edition say? Oh, yes, that's right. I remember. Let's do that. But it's the point of the game. Rules don't make any difference. I said in my others, hand you a deck of cards. We'll play that. You get it. You can do anything you want. Matt's writing a set of rules. I'm running a set of rules. There's a whole other boatload of people out there running a set of rules. You're going to get all kinds of rule systems like you did in the late 70s. You pick what you like. You pick what you want to use. Truthfully, most people would stay with Dungeons & Dragons. If they hadn't have basically kicked everybody in the nuts on the open license, I think there really wouldn't be a lot of people making their own rules. I'm doing it because, well, I'm at that age where I want to get my rules out there before I become room temperature. So that's my goal. If 500 people play it, yay. If 500,000 people play it, well, that'll be a bigger yay. But I really just want people to have an option to see how different rule systems can work. And I'm making this as unique as I can. And I'll likely do another video why I feel mine is unique. And why you might want to look into it and see if you want to play it. But that's not the point of role-playing. What role-playing is what you do in a game should change the next game. Now, I think a great example of that, if you want to just see it, I know a lot of you have, is Matt Mercer. Matt Mercer is a good actor, voice actor, and DM. I kind of get the impression he most likely modifies or writes his own content. And that content changes based upon what all the other good actors, good voice actors, and good players do with him. Now, in truth, I don't watch it that much because I always say that if I've got, 4 hours to watch a video of somebody's D&D game, I'm going to go play D&D. I mean, it's just me. I want to play. I want to have those experiences. And that's what I do. And that's what I want you to do. I want everyone to do it. As I'm writing my rules and writing the content, I'm trying to give people modules that they'll just run and do the same thing. That's bad. You know, I just had a recent text with Matt, and he put out about some blurb about the fact that there's the city area of the ghouls, and the idea is you're supposed to make as many adventures you can in this ghoul realm. And I just said, man, that is the way I like it. And Matt goes back and says, yes, yeah, you would. And it's true. I would. Matt knows me. He knows me that I want to provide stories. And I want what you do as your character to add to that story, even in some small way. Maybe it's that small way is dying. Maybe things like that change the game and make the game more dynamic and better. You know, if not, truthfully, you're going to get people who are going to come into the hobby and they're going to maybe leave the hobby because at some point they're going to think, well, kind of the same as World of Warcraft or whatever MMO I'm playing currently, and I don't need to drive and sit and paint miniatures and whatever. I can sit at home in my underwear and play it on the computer. I don't think that's what role-playing should be. Role-playing should be all the things that are invested with the heroes, i.e. your friends or acquaintances that hopefully will become your friends as you go down to defeat the evil, or if you're bad guys, to defeat the good, whatever. The other thing about it is I want you to learn how to DM. And there's a lot to that. It's kind of an art. And there was something that came to me very early in my DMing was that, and I hope not to be blasphemous here, I'm God. I am going to be able to make a story totally unique, because when Gods and Demigods book was handed to me and I opened it up, I said, hey, you mean I control all the gods? I mean, maybe that's me. I'm this more boring god who doesn't really want to get involved. So he puts all these other mini gods out there, like the Greek mythology or the Egyptian history or the Norse mythologies and all these different things. And he just manipulates and moves things around. He controls them. They control their minions. And people either worship to them or worship against them, and it goes from there. Empire of the Petal Throne had that kind of feeling that there were all these sort of minor gods, and you really sort of got the feeling that they really were sort of demigods, and they really weren't sort of in charge, and there's so darn many of them, who's in charge anyway? Maybe there's a hidden hand behind all of them manipulated. Could be that way in a lot of things. There's always some hidden hand behind what's happening to manipulate what's going on. I mean, human history shows you that. So I think what I want you to think about, and more than anything else, and why I'm starting out with this, is grab everything you can. d9-games.itch.io will get you my playtest. Now, we're about to come out with our second edition playtest 2.0, which is a lot more inclusive and cleaned up from what we did from the first one. You might want to wait a week or two to grab one, but it's there. Look at what I'm doing. Look at how I'm putting things together. But remember, the rules don't determine whatever you love, whatever game system you're going to be excited about. Play that. I like Fantasy Trip. I like Dragon Quest. I like Dungeons and Dragons. I love all these things. Kind of like 4th edition D&D more than 5th edition D&D, but, you know, vanilla, chocolate. Anyway, I wanted to basically go over this with you and do a short video just to get you prepped up for this. I want to start talking about my game system, but more importantly, I want you to start thinking about the idea of making your games yours. Even if you use modules, start with a module. Run it. Whatever the outcome was, think, okay, here's the 2nd edition module. Or what comes off of this module? What happens? Did the bad guy escape? Did he get killed? I don't know. Different things would make different reasons. Was there somebody else who was dependent on this bad guy to do something? Did he know you guys did this? You killed his minion? Wait a minute, you're now his enemy. Now, you may not know this guy, but he might know you. Now, he'll surely find out who you are, and maybe he starts setting negative, bad things in your pathway to make your life more miserable. Maybe he pretends to be your friend to send you on horrible missions. Maybe even if he doesn't exist, maybe the people he worships were there. And so you have a demigod now who might be mad at you. So many things can happen. It's an open slate. It always is. And it should be. Don't play a computer game. Play your campaign and modify it every time the players play, because you're going to get something that's going to be more fun. And down the road, they're going to get to interact. They're going to tell you, well, I want to do this. I want to go fight this dragon. Okay. I mean, you're likely going to die, just because that's what everybody tells you, but, maybe not. And then they go up there and they sort of get the Boulay story where they walk in, they fight the baby Boulays. The mother Boulay shows up and wipes out half the party. And they're like, well, why'd you do that? I said, because monsters don't become tremendously powerful by losing. Well, yeah, but we're like only first and second level. Why would you throw that at us? And I said, I didn't throw that at you. You had like umpteen warnings of don't go in there. And if you've seen the Boulay video, know what I'm talking about. I mean, and then you attacked her babies. I mean, that wasn't going to work out well. Then you knew she was coming, and you still stuck around because you figured a module was meant to be beaten, and that's what you guys had played. So, well, their attitude changed dramatically from that point on, and they understood, let's not do that again. And they didn't. And those are the guys in Matt's group, and they were some of the best players. I ran my Albion campaign, and it was wonderful, and things happened that I never expected to have happen. And the great thing about it is Matt Coville blogged it all at the time. But he would blog, and then I would say, well, I'm not sure that. He goes, the blog is always the truth. And I thought, that's right. He's right. He's the one writing the story, however he's doing it. I may be thinking I'm writing the story, but it's really the campaign. What are the players seeing? May not be what I see from behind the screen, but it's the story that they see, and it grows. And, when it was all done and said, it's still one of the best campaigns I ever ran. And it's surely, I think, one of the best campaigns most of them feel like they ever played. And it all happened because they molded the game and moved the game forward within the expanse of my story. That's like having people being able to jump into a Tolkien Lord of the Rings book and change it. Wouldn't it be cool if something different happened? I always thought that was the whole power of role-playing. And I hope maybe you guys will give it some thought. Now, I'm not going to change a lot of minds. I understand that. And not that many people see me even if I would. So it's really a case of you getting out there and trying it, and then trying to get others to grow on that concept if you believe in it. If not, enjoy playing your board game. Enjoy playing your computer game. Whatever it is where you're fixed, and no matter what you do, the outcome is going to essentially come down to the end and you're going to win. Okay, if you had a great time playing it, you didn't waste any time. If you made a lot of friends playing it, it was even better. So ignore everything I just said. But if you want to make something that is unique and magical and will live on forever, and in many ways give you some motivation like it's done for me, because I had hair and lots of it, and everything was brown, and I was still young and good looking, and I'm still playing now many, 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 did I miss a many? Decades later. So hope this is of some interest to you. I'm going to start talking more stuff about my campaign and about the Twilight of Fae and my Enlightened rules, because this is where we're at now. About to pop out the second edition of the playtest of the rules, and we're going to go right into running the Twilight of Fae campaign. And, it's going to be fun, and I'm really looking forward to it. At least put it out there so it'll be there in the future, because this is more labor of love to me than most anything else, because when it boils down to it, most of the things I've done in the hobby have not made me money. But what has been my great joy is to try to make the gaming the best I possibly can. Most of the time I think I've done pretty well. Sometimes I've fallen completely on my face, but that's life, and that's the way it goes. So we'll see what the next portion of the adventure leads for me. So until we have a chance to speak again, fight me devils, fight, for I hate peace. Kai's game on, and we'll talk to you soon.